I'm Scott Harrison. I'm the founder of Charity Water and started the organization about 5.5 years ago. I had changed my life from being a selfish nightclub promoter in New York City, getting people wasted for a decade, and then had left that behind to go and serve the poor on a hospital ship in West Africa for a couple of years, and saw extreme poverty for the first time, was really moved, and then learned that the reason so many of these people were sick was the lack of access to clean drinking water. And I was kind of shocked seeing people drinking from swamps and ponds and rivers, and learned that almost 1 billion people in the world didn't have something I'd always taken for granted. So I came back to New York at 30 years old, determined to work on the problem and make as big an impact as possible. One of my favorite things was taking the patients home to their villages. So I got to do this a bunch of times and really fought hard for the ship to let me take the Land Rovers and even stay overnight sometimes in the jungle. So the first kid that I met that I talk a lot about is this boy named Alfred, and he was my first kind of look at a freaking monstrous tumor face to face. And I'd never seen anything like this before. It was like a basketball in his mouth. And I got to see him like literally on the verge of death, almost ready to kick it. And then I got to watch the surgery. And then I was given the opportunity to drive him home to his village. And I just remember pulling in, and people were looking at this kid like he'd come back from the dead. They had written him off a long time ago, and here he is. The basketball tumor is gone. He's got a little banged up, some stitches and stuff. But there was just a party, and there was smiles and celebration, and I kind of got addicted to that. So when I would get to know these patients in the operating room, I would want to take them home and be there with the camera for that moment. There was a guy named Joseph Jones, and he had a big tumor out to here, and I remember taking him home, deep in the just people literally, like, you could see them coming towards you, dancing, clapping, surrounding him, almost lifting him up, like the prodigal son kind of come home, like throw that huge party. I guess there was one that I kind of orchestrated, and I was taking a patient named Harris home, who was the village outcast, and he lived in a town, kind of beach town called Buchanan on the coast, and he was a fisherman, and because of his tumor, he was sort of ostracized. So when I took him home, I actually orchestrated his homecoming, and I wanted to make sure that there were hundreds of people waiting outside his house. So we stopped, and I kind of ran a diversion and made sure we got everybody, and when we drove down the street, there they were, and he just, man, I've never seen him grinning. I'd never seen that kind of joy or happiness before, just grinning ear to ear, being welcomed home. He's making speeches, he's waving his hands, again, just a life kind of saved. And then I threw a big party that night. I gave him a dinner for 50 for his friends, and I think we gave open bar to the whole town for 200, which cost like $180 or something for everything. I don't know that I was ever really happy in my previous life, and I think, so from a personal level, doing work that had meaning, serving. I mean, for 10 years I'd served myself, so it was all about, that's ironic, I guess. I was chasing my happiness for 10 years and found myself deeply unhappy. And then, when I came back to faith and decided to serve others, I was truly happy. And I mean, I couldn't wait to get out of bed in the morning and just have at it. I mean, there was so much meaning and purpose to be able to meet these incredible people, to be able to tell their stories, to be able to raise money to help more of them. I guess what also struck me was how people could be happy having so little. To imagine someone living in a small mud hut that's got no access to clean water, that's barely got enough food to put on the table, and then they're grinning ear to ear to welcome you. They're even giving you food. They're trying to feed you when they have nothing. Really shifts your paradigm. I mean, I'll take a lot of donors to Africa, and they'll say, how can these people be so happy? They've got nothing. They don't have TVs. They don't have internet. They don't have, and they don't even have clean water. And I think there's, a lot of people find their happiness, through, through their spiritual connections, and others, I think through family, and it makes us come back every time. We come back and we really have to reevaluate, our lives, our spending habits, our dissatisfaction when we have so much. Happiness for me is seeing other people happy and getting to do that for a living. I mean, there's nothing better than seeing someone drink clean water for the first time, seeing a child or an old matriarch, knowing that we eliminated 4 or 5, 6 hours of a day of walking. Know that we're eliminating disease, that we're restoring dignity, that people can feel beautiful again because they've got extra water just to wash themselves. I mean that puts a smile on my face. I mean I grin ear to ear walking in these villages, as the celebrations happen, as the communities welcome us and thank us for the clean water, and then often even ask for their neighboring communities if they could have the same thing. So yeah, happiness for me is just it's service. It's being able to, and I'm thankful that I'm healthy enough and strong enough to do that. We hear anecdotally that water brings, we say water certainly brings health. So bringing clean water into a village just makes people healthier, right? There's less incidents of diarrhea. There are less incidents of worms. Leeches are a massive problem in these rural villages. So when you don't have to drink water with leeches in it and you can drink clean water, people are they're just happier. I think it also improves education. So imagine the pride of a parent knowing that his kids can go to school because they don't have to walk a few hours every day for dirty water. Knowing they can just go to school with clean uniforms and not go kind of with the indignity of just being filthy because there's not enough water at the house. So it brings health into villages, it brings education, it restores time to people. I think all of those components just make for a healthier and happier community and individuals. So I actually love the song. There's one that comes to mind. I love the song "Overjoyed" by Stevie Wonder, which I actually learned how to play on the piano, and I love it. He changes keys like 3 times, just keeps getting higher and higher, and there's just something kind of euphoric about that song. I think one of the things that surprised me was how easy it was for me, despite all the horrible things that I did and just the selfish way that I lived for 10 years, how easy it was for me to kind of come back to my faith and be, what I felt really accepted, and to just, how easy it was to change. My life now looks absolutely nothing like, what it looked just a couple of years before I started Charity Water. I was really kind of a despairing, joyless, dark, soulless, bankrupt kind of person. And it's an amazing opportunity. I guess the capacity to change, and I really give the credit to God. It's more than I could have done myself. And I think I'm surprised sometimes when I just think of that contrast. If I see a photo from the old days, or if I run into someone I used to party with until 6 or 7 in the morning, just remembering how dark and sad that really was, and how different my life is now. I can't believe that I get to do what I get to do every day. I guess starting Charity Water was just an expression of my faith, and I didn't start a Christian organization. I didn't know any Christians at the time, to be quite honest. But I read the verse in James 1:27. It said, look after widows and orphans in their stress, and keep yourself from being polluted. So that seems so simple. If that was the definition of true religion, and so opposite of the way I'd lived my life for 10 years. So not only did I not care about the poor, do nothing for the poor, I was a polluter. I lived the most polluted life, and I actually kind of sold pollution. So being able to give clean water to 1 billion people, 2 widows, 2 orphans, through my work was kind of good enough. That didn't need more of an agenda. And then the rest was just personal integrity and personal relationship with God, and making sure that that I did live right, and that I lived a life of honor and truthfulness. And so I guess I love the Lord's Prayer, and on earth as it is in heaven. I guess I believe that in heaven, no woman is walking 6 hours to a pond or a river, no kids dying of diarrhea, and Charity Water being able to help millions of people get access to clean water, I believe it's kind of a tangible way, for that verse to make sense to me. I had this moment where I just said I would give God everything, back in Liberia when I walked up the ship, and I really never looked back from that moment. So it's certainly been a journey, and I've only kind of gone deeper with God and understood, I guess, more of his heart for the poor. I guess you could say, it sounds so cheesy and cliche, but my personal faith journey is just, I kind of want more, at every turn. So, it's been 7 years, and I want more now than I did last year or the year before. The organization, though, kind of is almost on a separate track. Its goals are so clear. It's to end water poverty. It's to envision a day where every single person on earth has access to clean water. And there's no agenda of Charity Water. We work through, faith-based organizations, non-faith-based organizations in 20 countries. We have people working for us with very different beliefs than I have, the people we serve. So it's kind of been nice not having an agenda and getting to live my own story and my own values out, and actually talk about my personal story, but yet having an organization that is just really about something so simple, bringing clean drinking water to 1 billion people, with excellence, with integrity, with transparency. I'd like to write a book, so it's finding the time to try to write the story and hope that it might inspire others. And maybe the takeaway of that is just anybody can do it. If a nightclub promoter can go on and help start an organization that helps a couple people get clean water, what could you do? I didn't have official training, and I didn't go get my master's in international development. I just kind of saw something and then chased after it. So that's something. And as far as the organization goes, it's just scale. We want to help 100 million people in the next 10 years. By helping 100 million, hope we're really helping a couple 100 million, and just go as fast as we can. Right now, people are dying of dirty water, and I see it every time I go. I'll do 80 flights this year, and I spend a lot of time in the developing world, and I hear from people who are saying, "Will you please help us?" So there's an urgency, for me in getting to them before they die. All the challenges start to converge, and it's, while we've raised $65 million, when you start thinking of raising a couple $100 million, kind of what got us here will not get us to the next level. Then you start talking about implementing at scale. You implement a couple $100 million. You've got new challenges. You just have organizations that can't handle so much money. So you've got to get in the business of growing the organizations, increasing their capacity, buying drilling rigs. So there are so many challenges. It's so much harder than I ever imagined. And we've just kind of grown to embrace it. And, and it's fun. It's you find joy and and fun in all the challenges and the stuff you never thought you'd have to be dealing with. Yeah, so the birthday, as you mentioned, is probably the single most personal way people can get involved. And what I love about it is it's the birthday is deeply personal to you. It's your special day, and we've just tried to give people a very simple way to turn that day into a generous, selfless act and involve a bunch of their friends. So many things happen there. You get educated, so you have to know actually about the cause and why you would be giving up gifts and not throwing a party, and the story that you're telling. And then, I think it's community building. So the average person that runs a successful campaign gets about 13 donors. So you brought 13 people into this story, and then they have the opportunity to go and grow that. So we're seeing people's impact is even greater than their own birthday. I would say, another thing people could do is just really get educated. It's watch some of the videos. It's let the issue, sink into their heart. Or maybe it's not even our issue. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's justice issues or sex trafficking or education. I sadly see so many apathetic people who have nothing. There's nothing of true meaning that they're pursuing, and that they're living like I did 7 years ago.